The United States has always provided support for Israel. I think we have to continue to make sure that Israel can defend itself. But we also have a right to say to Israel, I'm sorry, you can't just do all kinds of bombing, which are killing innocent men, women, and children.
What with the war and everything and the radical Islamic jihadi terrorist group dedicated to the total destruction of your people and your state, you should put your hands in your pockets and whistle past the graveyard. Well, well, well. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day, as they say in the Clinton household. Hillary Clinton, every Wednesday morning, tragically waking up face down in a pool of her own dried vomit on a linoleum kitchen floor in one of their many multi-million-dollar mansions. An empty cardboard box, 1 gallon of cheap New Zealand Chardonnay next to her, Secret Service agents shaking their heads, their knuckles on their hips. Hillary, Hillary, what might have been, what might have been. She sometimes wakes up just long enough to throw an ashtray at them because, she likes to throw things at people. Men, sometimes men with guns. She's not a good person, is she? No, she's not. Well, happy hump day. Bill, it's one of Bill's favorite days. They might have the Energizer over today. It's kind of a rotating thing. He's still got that little black book from Jeffrey Epstein. He's got the Epstein book, and who knows what goes on in the house of Bill Clinton, especially when Hillary's not home. Tragic, I say. Sad. And speaking of tragic and sad, Joe Biden is still the president of the United States. He's living in the White House in the private residence. You'd think he'd sleep in the attic or something. They'd put him up like an Anne Frank's apartment, get him out of here. But no, Joe Biden is a tragic story as well. Hillary Clinton is a different kind of tragedy because she will never be president, and she thought she was entitled to it. Can you imagine being so taken with yourself that you marry this guy and ride his coattails, and then you become the worst Secretary of State in modern times, bomb more countries than any president since World War II, Barack Obama, and be his chief diplomat. And, what a terrible, horrible life she is. And nobody likes her, let's be honest, except maybe Hummo Wiener. But we can't talk about that here because of FCC regulations, because it gets a little tawdry. When I say a little tawdry, well, let me just say, I'll just move on from there. Pretty amazing stuff. But Joe Biden, we're preparing what was supposed to be tomorrow night or the night after the White House Christmas tree lighting. But timber! The White House Christmas tree fell down. It was big on all kinds of news stories about where they got it, and it was from this place, and they cut it down, and it's real big, and they brought it in on this truck, and then they stood it up on the ellipse. They always have it on the ellipse. That's a big lawn outside of the White House gates, and kind of on the mall adjacent to the ellipse is in between the White House and the mall. And they put the tree up, and it was a little breezy, and all the news media it was so windy, it was so terrible. No, it's everybody knows, and the news media is in denial as usual about their gender and their sexual orientation and all kinds of things. But and journalism, they're very, very stuck about that whole journalism thing. But the tree, the Christmas tree, how big was it, Michael? Real big, and it fell over on its side, the national Christmas tree. And it's a perfect symbol of Joe Biden's presidency, a metaphor. And, with all the Democrats have adopted this anti-Semitism thing. It's really big in the Democrat Party. They got gender dysphoria and grooming children and drugs. There are a lot of drugs for them. And now they're pro-Hamas. It's kind of weird, but the authoritarianism inside of them is bubbling up to the surface. They see genocidal lunatics, death cult, affiliated with radical Islam, and they say, hey, turns out we've got a lot in common. That's the Democrats. So they go out and they glue themselves to the streets. You see them we didn't talk about it a lot, I mentioned, but the Macy's annual, the Macy's Day, it's called the Thanksgiving Parade. and liberals, self-described, went out and sat in the street and they glued themselves to the asphalt. And they're so stupid they couldn't even do that right. You see that? They couldn't even, they try to glue themselves to something and they fail. Every day's an IQ test. And Democrats, you know, what are you going to say? But we got that going. And boy, I tell you, the New York Post, Frosty the Joe Man. Frosty the Joe Man is the headline. New York Post blasts petty White House for cliquey Christmas parties. This is another one. You know, normally the White House has big Christmas parties, Christmas time, a number of them. And I've been to many of them myself over the years, and you usually go and you meet the president and shake his hand. The official White House photographer takes pictures of you and your best girl with the president of the United States and stuff. Well, this year, they're only inviting bootlick, and the news media, White House press corps and stuff, they're invited. And this year, they're only inviting bootlicks, which is, you know, almost all of them. So there aren't many people being excluded. But it's a fascinating thing because it's more and more like the Soviet Union. They become more and more Soviet and less American with each tick of the clock, each rotation of the earth. It's extraordinary. And Newsbusters covered the story, and the New York Post also covered the story that the White House is inviting only certain members of the press pool and the news media in Washington, and coincidentally, they're all suck-ups and bootlicks for the Democrat Party. What a shock. That means that they don't have to exclude many people, but they did everything they could to exclude people. It's kind of amazing stuff. There's a Democrat member of Congress. He thinks he's from Minnesota, and the media calls him a moderate, which maybe means he's not a complete Stalinist. And his name is Dean Phillips. And he says he's running against Joe Biden, but they're ignoring him because, you know, they're big and he's small, so they'll roll right over him. And he's doing an interview, and he says, well, what Joe Biden needs to do is he needs to start smoking pot. He needs to start smoking weed, because that's the one thing missing from Joe Biden, right? You know, his brain doesn't work. It never has. And it'd get much better if he were just stoned all the time. And that's what a Democrat member of the House of Representatives says Joe Biden ought to be doing. Just great stuff. I'm telling you. Amazing. Also, last night, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he was there, and he was speaking for the lighting of the Capitol Hill Christmas tree. Down the mall, there's another giant Christmas tree in front of the Capitol on the west front of the Capitol. Speaker of the House was there for the lighting. You turn the lights on. You know, it's like a Chevy Chase movie, and they all go on, and everybody claps, and it's very nice. But leftists showed up, and they're pro-jihad. They are for the genocide of the Jewish people, and they are Democrats in the mainstream of the Democrat Party. 4 of them were arrested. Tragically, 3 were killed. It was very, very sad. Not really. 3 weren't killed, but 4 were arrested at the lighting with the Speaker of the House of the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree. While the Speaker of the House was talking about the reason for the season, the left was there calling for a genocide of the Jewish people and the extermination of the state of Israel from the river to the sea, because they're not on the side of civilization. They're too dumb to know it, most of them, but they're on the side of totalitarianism. It's quite amazing. It is. I'm telling you. Molly Hemingway, she's a great and wonderful reporter and writer here in Washington, and she's got a great piece about the Biden administration has made hate and propaganda its political strategy. Well, that's true. That's I'm not sure if that's brand new, but it's true. Hate is the central value of the Democrat Party. Hate everybody except Hamas. They love Hamas, and Putin and Xi Jinping. They like it, and Iran, the Ayatollahs. They love the Ayatollahs. All right, and criminals on the streets, and looters, and carjackers. All right, well, they don't hate everybody. But if you're not a carjacker, you don't go around shooting people in drive-bys at schools. You're not a meth dealer or a fentanyl dealer. If you're not engaged in child sex trafficking across our border. Because the Democrats, they like all those people. They like the cartels in Mexico, the child sex traffickers. The Democrats like those. They like the people grooming children in kindergarten with LGBTQ graphic novels. They like those people. So I can't say they hate everybody. All right, I overstated initially. They love the Ayatollah. They love. Remember when President Trump had Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, had him killed, and the left was very upset with President Trump for killing one of the world's leading terrorists. And so they don't hate everybody. They love Hamas. The Democrat Party has gone full demento. Honestly, completely nuts. And speaking of Hunter Biden, or full demento, Hunter Biden, he was subpoenaed by the U.S. Congress, and the subpoena requires that he appear before Congress because they're investigating leading up to what may be an eventual Joe Biden impeachment by the House of Representatives. And so they subpoenaed Joe Biden, and his lefty lawyer in Washington, D.C. responded yesterday. He was like, well, he'll respond, but on my terms, and it won't be in closed session. It'll be an open session or not at all, because we're going to turn this thing into a circus, a bigger circus than it already is. And then he honked him, because he's got, his lawyer's got a big horn on his belt, and he runs around with a trench coat. Pretty strange. So, speaking of which, how many child molesters have they caught coming across our southern border lately? Because I've got an update on our southern border. There's a trainload of illegals headed our way from central South Mexico, headed to the Texas border. And Joe Biden and the Democrats are, what did Dr. Jill say? The breakfast tacos, they're sending them. No, was it breakfast tacos? Yeah, breakfast tacos. And they're going to the Bogotas. I think they're going to the Bogotas. Jill Biden. That's yeah. So they're going to the Bogotas and they're sending them breakfast tacos. They have gift baskets waiting for the child sex traffickers and the fentanyl traffickers and the cartel members and the rapists. And then the story Border Patrol came out. They said, "Hey, you know how many child sexual predators we caught crossing our border?" So I'll update you on that. Also, speaking of the Democrat Party, a senior CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, a senior CIA official posted her pro-Palestinian, says she got a Facebook page, and her Facebook page shows that she loves terrorists and hates the Jews. And that's fine because the Democrats are in charge and Joe Biden is in the White House. So, and here it is right on her Facebook page, and she loves the nightlife. She loves to boogie. She loves the terrorists and hates Western civilization. She must have been a John Brennan. Remember penitentiary face Brennan? He was one of the leaders of that criminal information operation that they ran against the American people on the lead up to the 2020 election with that letter signed by 51 so-called intelligence people. One of them was Dana Bash's ex-husband at CNN. He's not an intelligence official. He's a Democrat Party apparatchik, but never mind that. Yeah, top CIA officials shared pro-Palestinian Facebook stuff after Hamas attacks, right? Just crazy. And speaking of which, when they're holding the hostages, what did the terrorists do with what? Because we're getting a couple of reports dribbling out now about what some of the hostages were subjected to. And the terrorists are still holding, about 100 and some, and I got the number over here, innocent people. They're terrorists, And the Democrats think that the Israelis are the bad guys, and I'm the bad guy because they're mentally ill. That's really the big problem, is an epidemic of mental illness in the United States. Also, the Democrats, who are pro-terrorists and genocidal anti-Semites, are planning on disrupting the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting. They've got flyers out, and they're asking all of their violent, mentally ill criminals to show up at the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting because it's Christmas, and they prefer radical Islamic terrorism. That's the thing about them. Kind of wacky. How many Democrats voted against a resolution affirming Israel's right to exist? Democrats, they got the squad. I expect them to show up in suicide vests one of these days. Pretty amazing stuff. And they're very upset, they are, about what's going on the left, what's going on in the Gaza. What about what's going on in Ukraine? And for that matter, anybody paying attention to the Syrian civil war, the Yemeni civil war, how many people died there? This, that Black Lives Matter thing. Sometimes, and it's like lives in the Middle East. Do Arab lives matter? Well, sometimes. I'll explain. Amazing stuff. I got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for you today. Oh, and which special counsel is spying on all of us and collecting data on all of us? Sig Heil minus Shotzi. We are at 888-630-9625.
As distinct as the Bogotas of the Bronx.
Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com.
So Oakland, California is a city in the United States of America. It's not much of a city. It's mostly a rolling gunfight. It's a work-free drug place where Democrats shoot people and steal things. But they had a city council meeting in Oakland, California. They invited the public to speak, which was, I think, a big mistake because the place is full of Democrats. Perhaps you've heard of them. And I want to share with you some of the things that Democrats said at the... Now, why were they there? They were there to condemn Israel, because Oakland, and call for a ceasefire. They want Israel to stop defending themselves so the jihadis can get back to murdering their children. And, the Democrats love that. That's, what's not news? When 6-year-olds are shot and killed in the streets of Chicago. That's not news. In the streets of Washington, D.C., there was a 10-year-old girl shot in her mother's car on Mother's Day. Remember that? And killed. Not news. Not news at all. That's our journalistic, our fourth estate. You know how they are. But I want to play for you what these Democrats in Oakland, California said at the city council meeting right there before Dog and everyone. Dog is their co-pilot. And it's almost impossible to believe where the Democratic Party has found itself today. But if you're a Democrat, you're welcome to call in and explain. I think you don't want to move to Oakland, California. This is my assessment. I think that there are too many crazy people there. We call them Democrats. And they were invited to speak. The Democrats were, the citizens. Some of them might even be taxpayers. It's hard to say. But it's making news all over the place. Oakland City Council unanimously passes resolution, unanimously, because, they march in lockstep at all times. There's no individual freedom of thought among Democrats. The party dictates what they will believe, and then the faithful all believe it, because the trend now is to hate Israel and to love Hamas, a radical Islamic terrorist organization which is genocidal in their orientation. In fact, their charter is genocidal. Oakland City Council calls for Gaza ceasefire after weeks of protests. There have been weeks of protests, pro-terrorists, pro-genocide protests. Hundreds of speakers weighed in on hotly debated council resolution during nearly 5 hours of comments. Nearly 5 hours of comments on Monday night, and we found out about it yesterday, and CBS News is excited to announce that Oakland City Council unanimously passes resolution calling for permanent ceasefire in Gaza. They want a permanent ceasefire. Now, here's the thing. This all started because Israel was attacked by a genocidal death cult that resides in Gaza. Their name is Hamas. They've got another genocidal death cult next door, also in the Gaza, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Then there's another genocidal death cult to the north. That's called Hezbollah. They're all backed by Iran, which is a genocidal death cult. The Ayatollahs, the Islamic Revolution there is a genocidal death cult. And now the Democrat Party in the United States has joined forces. Quite remarkable. On Monday night, the Oakland City Council passed a resolution calling for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. That just means Israel should stop now. Now, while all of this has been going, we just had this, 4 days ago, 5 days ago, a pause. They're calling it a pause. And at that time, now it's clear that the Hamas has violated the pause again and again. There were a couple of bombs dropped yesterday. Oh no, smoke is rising from the Gaza. Yeah, they're probably not roasting a pig. So what do you think it is? Might be something else. And roast pig is good, isn't it? Real good. Real good. By the way, Canada is sending a bunch of wild pigs our way. They're invading across our northern border, which is crazy. Like those Romanians. You don't confuse them with Romanians. A lot of Romanians coming in over our northern border, too. But that's a different thing. So in any case, they're probably not roasting a pig. Delicious roast pig. But the Democrat Party has found itself in a very, very peculiar place, I think, because they're not liberals. They're the left. And this transition took place while no one was looking, kind of like, your fourth grade child came home, with a gender change. Well, the Democrat Party has gone through kind of a political gender change, and now they're pro-terrorists. It's pretty nutty, I got to say. Now, there was the funeral yesterday for Rosalind Carter, bless her heart. The Jimmy Carter was there. He was struggling. He's not doing great. He's been in hospice for a long, long time now. But outside of the Rosalind Carter funeral, where was it? Emory University. There were pro-jihad protesters outside because to say that they lack a sense of decorum would be generous. But the pro-Hamas, pro-jihad, pro-genocide Democrats were outside of Rosalind Carter's funeral where they came to disrupt.
Biden, you can hide. Biden, you can hide. We charge you with genocide. We charge you with genocide. Biden, you can hide. Biden, you can hide. We charge you with genocide. We charge you with genocide.
Have you noticed?
Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
Biden, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. This is a funeral for a former first lady in her 90s with her now widowed husband showing up in a wheelchair, looking quite frail. And a lot of them, so many of them are women. Have you noticed that? The women are cannon fodder, which is kind of ironic since it's for the jihad, where they would be abused in ways that they couldn't imagine. But never mind that. They're outside of Rosalind Carter's funeral. They're Democrats. They all vote Democrat. They self-describe as liberals. Some of them are women they may identify otherwise because that's a trend with them too. But it's quite remarkable. They're there to disrupt the funeral of Rosalind Carter in favor of a radical Islamic terrorist jihadi group and in the name of liberalism. The Democratic Party, make no mistake, Sig Heil Democrat Party. What happened to you people? What is the matter with you? Any Democrats out there that can explain this to me? Because, I'm not very bright. I need to have this explained to me. You guys. I tell you also when Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, lighting the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree, the Christmas tree lighting was disrupted by Democrats who are vile and vulgar and have no sense of decorum, I think it would be fair to say. And they showed up to disrupt the Christmas tree lighting at the Capitol while the Speaker of the House was addressing the crowd.
A piece of your state's abundant beauty with us in Washington. Also want to thank Chief Randy Moore with the U.S. Forest Service.
Now, the Christmas tree outside the White House, the big national Christmas tree, fell over yesterday. I haven't heard anybody raise any questions whether, Democrats were involved in that. Oh, it was real windy. Yeah, everyone knows it's windy. Also, they're planning on disrupting the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting in New York City because they have organized the mentally ill, the Democrats have, and they've mainstreamed them. It's quite remarkable. But back to Oakland, California now, because the city council there of radical leftist extremists, radical left-wing extremists, they have a resolution to call for a permanent ceasefire. Now, again, the jihadis were firing rockets and missiles into Israel, the hope of killing Jewish children until the moment of this pause, which they're using to rearm and to torture and brutalize the hostages that they have, a great many hostages remaining in their hands. But in California, they're on the side of the jihad because this is how their broken brains work. These broken people with their broken brains. Joe Biden has a broken brain too, doesn't he? But he's got a Democrat member of the House who's recommending that he should start smoking dope because that might make him smarter, might make him a better president.
I think I go day after tomorrow or the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, the day after tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Both days. Which day is that, Mr. President? Oh, you know. Let's go to the Oakland City Council, where they unanimously passed a call for a ceasefire, which means Israel should stop killing. Did you see Elon Musk also? He said, well, you got to kill the terrorists. And people are really upset with him. Like that's a crazy idea of some kind. Amazing. If these people were around in the 1940s, we'd be talking German. Achtung, schnell, schnell. We'd all be speaking German. On the West Coast, we'd be speaking Japanese, though, which is a harder language to learn. But that's not important now. Let's go to the Oakland City Council, where one Democrat after another lined up to give their opinions, to share their opinions. And all of them, I can tell you, self-describe as liberals or leftists. And because some of them are admittedly communists and socialists, like Bernie Sanders, who honeymooned in the Soviet Union with that awful woman. And she bankrupted that college, which is kind of hard to do. But never mind that. So here is the Democrats. I got a few of them for you at the Oakland City Council meeting, addressing the City Council before they voted unanimously, like the United Nations, to condemn Israel and demand a ceasefire. And it's a permanent. When they say permanent ceasefire, that means Israel stops shooting anything and anybody. But when Hamas gets back to kidnapping, torturing, raping, murdering, mutilating, that's fine because they're oppressed. Those are the oppressed people. Right? And the oppressors are the Israelis. That's the thing with the American left. So here's the Oakland City Council meeting. Here's Democrat number one.
There's not been beheadings of babies and rapings. Israel murdered their own people on October 7th.
See, she knows. And the glassy-eyed zombies, this is the zombie apocalypse. And I was reminded of Occupy Wall Street with the chanting at the, it's a pseudo-religious thing. And they do this call and response. Who was that? Cloward and Piven, Francis Fox Piven, teaching the youths in New York how to do this repetition thing.
You are amazing.
You are amazing.
A lot of you are young.
A lot of you are young.
A lot of you are young.
Energy.
You have energy.
Imagination.
Imagination.
If they were taking the oath and, if they said, repeat after me, your name, they would all say your name. Right? This is this is your Democrat. That was Francis Fox Piven, a longtime college professor, extreme radical leftist, communist, undermining America for generations on American college campuses, training the glassy-eyed zombies at Occupy Wall Street. I called it correctly at the time that this was their recruiting phase, and there would be more later. And there was. Black Lives Matter. Now they're pro-jihad and pro-genocide. That's the Democrat Party. Well, let's get back to the Oakland City Council meeting, because the young woman came up and said, no, there were no decapitations. There were no, Israel killed their own babies on October 7th. This is what Democrats are believing today. If you're a Democrat, your brain is in a state of trauma. You need help. You need help. Oakland City Council.
Calling Hamas a terrorist organization is ridiculous, racist, and plays into genocidal propaganda that is flooding our media and that we should be doing everything possible to combat.
It's racist. Everything is, she's a racist. That's all. I don't know anything about her except that she's a racist. That's all. All I can say about her is that she's, because, oh yeah, racist. You're a racist. No, you're a racist. This is the party of lynching black people from trees, the party of slavery and the bullwhip, the party of Jefferson Davis and the Confederate States of America, going around calling everybody racist. Oh, well, I can't wait to get to the mayor of Chicago a little later on, too. Have you seen this guy? He's a Democrat. His brain, she's a broke. She's a no good. That's amazing. So, hey, next Democrat, please come up to the microphone for the Oakland City Council meeting where we're going to vote unanimously to condemn Israel and demand a ceasefire, at least on their part.
I support the right of Palestinians to resist occupation, including through Hamas, the armed wing of the unified Palestinian resistance.
Listen to her language, the unified. She's like a communist propagandist, and she thinks she's very bright. She thinks, and the right to resist the illegal occupation. Now, Barack Obama called it the occupation just about 2 weeks ago now. Barack Obama was out there speaking in public, and he used the language of Hamas just like this young woman. And again, so many of them are glassy-eyed zombie young women, and they have no idea what they're advocating, but it would be fun to introduce them to what they're advocating, wouldn't it? Yeah, Barack Obama referred to it as the occupation because this is the language that the left has adopted, and it is the language of Iran. Barack Obama is Iran's number one funder, number one source of funding, so they can kill the Jews and destroy Western civilization. I don't think he's on our side. He was raised and mentored by Frank Marshall Davis of the American Communist Party. But Barack Obama's using the same rhetoric.
What is also true is that the occupation and what's happening to Palestinians is unbearable.
The occupation. In this context, the occupation means the Jews' illegal occupation of Palestine, which was a British protectorate after World War I. Before that, it was occupied by the Turks, the Ottoman Empire. But pay no attention to that. It's a holy war, and Barack Obama is climbing over the side of the wooden ship with a dagger in his teeth and a do-rag on his head. The guy is amazing. And then they at the Oakland City Council meeting, they did have one person who was apparently Muslim.
As an Arab, asking with this context to condemn Hamas is very anti-Arab racist.
Yeah, condemn Hamas is very anti-Arab racist because all Arabs are cutthroats, kidnappers, rapists, brigands. And if you condemn that, then you're anti-Arab. It's quite remarkable. Yeah, and then the Jew-hating pro-Hamas, again, another woman.
The notion that this was a massacre of Jews is a fabricated narrative. Many of those killed on October 7th,
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
Including children, were killed by the IDF.
This is the narrative in Oakland. It's a false flag. The Jews killed their own babies, and just so they could attack the Gaza, which is real nice, and they want to get it. And then they had a man, and he loves Hamas.
To hear them complain about Hamas violence is like listening to a wife beater complain when his wife finally stands up and fights back.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. And then they allowed people to phone it in, too, because they didn't want to get up, getting at home, getting stoned.
Hamas is not a terrorist organization just because the U.S. and Israel deems it so. Hamas is a resistance organization that is fighting for the liberation of Palestinian people and their land.
That's exactly. Now, this is the mainstream of the Democrat Party. All Democrat City Council in Oakland, which is a rolling gunfight, one of the murder capitals of Western civilization. And Democrats run it. They're pro-crime. They're pro-gun crime. They're pro-carjacking. They seem to be pro-homicide, don't they? That's and then they voted unanimously to demand that Israel, at least and only, declare a ceasefire and stop going after the radical Islamic jihadi terrorists that are hell-bent on genocide because the Democrats say so. Now, the Democrats have a senator, Mark Warner, and isn't he worth like $300 million? Because when you're a Democrat, things are very different. But Mark Warner is a Democrat senator, and he was on the television with his pals at MSDNC, and they were talking about how the Democrats have turned against Israel and now they're pro-Hamas. It's pretty crazy. But here's Senator Mark Warner with Andrea Mitchell, longtime NBC reporter.
Israel has been losing the hearts and minds of people not only in the region, but around the world. One of the things that I would strongly urge our Israeli partners is to release some of the funds that go to the Palestinian Authority.
Yeah, Israel should fund Hamas, just like Barack Obama and Joe Biden fund Iran with billions and billions of dollars that they then can use to destroy Western civilization, to spin centrifuges, to enrich uranium, to advance their ballistic missile program, thanks to Barack Obama, whose middle name is coincidentally Hussein, and whose mentor as a young man was Frank Marshall Davis, a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. That's your Democrat Party. And Mark Warner says, yeah, they should release funds. Does Israel have funds that belong to Hamas? That'd be kind of strange. We should fund the jihad. Honestly, it reminds me of the old Lenin line that the capitalist will sell you the rope with which to hang them. They're kind of this merging of jihad and leftist thought.